time to talk about Gavv.
Gavv. I love Gavv. You love Gavv. We all love Kamen Rider Gavv. But I didn't really like that ending.
Hi everybody, I am back with another video, which is a big collab video with some really good friends of mine. Say hi everybody!
Hello everybody!
Hello! Everyone!
Hello everyone, number one Gavv hater here.
Hi guys!
I'm just kidding. I do like the show. I especially like these little things.
Hi, I'm Antho.
And I'm Cass.
And we're Evil and Lady.
And welcome to the Kezza Henshin channel!
So you may be looking at the title and being like, Kezza, why are we talking about Gavv in 2026? Well, it's because this video has been on the back burner for a while, so let me get this video out to you. Today we're going to talk with creators and friends about why Gavv may not have stuck the landing.
Big shout outs to Kezza for allowing me to be in this video.
Thank you very much, Kezza, for asking me to get involved with this.
And Kezza Henshin asked me to make a video about my thoughts about the ending of Gavv and what I thought could be improved or what I really liked about it.
I really like yapping about tokusatsu, so this is going to be no exception.
So, fun fact about this is actually our second time recording our Gavv discussion segment because
we made each a 25 plus minute long mini discussion with ourselves.
But yeah, let's talk Gavv.
I was asked what I would change with the ending of Kamen Rider Gavv.
Did I get that right, Kezza?
What can I say? We're very passionate.
And I have thoughts.
So, Antho and I had some ideas that were similar as well, so we thought, let's just talk about them together. This will be way easier.
I have some thoughts on Gavv, but I'm going to try and make them pretty concise and pretty short, because otherwise I'll speak for as long as this video actually is.
But don't you worry, it's not all going to be negative. Let's start with the positives first.
So I've been putting off watching the finale of Gavv for quite a bit. I'm literally the worst binge watcher in the world. I do this a lot with other writer shows and anime, and for this, I was just enjoying Gavv so much that I was savoring it. I didn't want it to end quite yet.
I loved this season. I genuinely enjoyed the story. It had a very captivating story. I enjoyed all of the characters as well. Like, I genuinely found myself caring about the characters. And that's something that shows nowadays typically don't do too well, especially if they have a large cast. Of course, this is the season that gave me the love of my life, Sachika-san. So that immediately comes at some more points.
Finally finished Gavv just right now. Thank you, Kezza, for pushing me to finally do it. And I still think it's a top 3 Reiwa season. Geet still being my number 1, but I'm not here to talk about that.
First of all, I'd like to say that I love Kamen Rider Gavv, so anything that I point out here is just my little likes and nitpicks of the season. If anyone knows me, they know that I love Kamen Rider Gavv, and I love to talk about it, so this is a great way for me to get all my thoughts about the ending out there again.
I loved Gavv at the start. Like, the start of Gavv where he saves the kid and he does all the sick-ass toku fighting with all the crates around him at the start. I loved that introduction. In fact, Vram is one of my favorite riders that have come out of Kamen Rider in a long, long time.
Full disclosure, Kamen Rider Gavv was the first Kamen Rider I've ever watched through. I had this hard rule where I was going to watch all of Sentai chronologically, then go back and watch Rider chronologically. But I kind of fell into with the community that I built to watch Gavv, and then I fell in love with Gavv. I love the Gachizos, I love the characters, I love the suits. I love the story.
A massive fan of a good story. I'm a massive fan of a good backstory too for each character. You can, I like how each and every single motive that every character has, it's clear, it's concise, and we can see how it connects.
I'm quite a big Showa era fan, so to be forthright, Kamen Rider Gavv was actually my first ever Reiwa Rider series that I watched. I even caught an episode while I was in Japan, which was really cool. Visually, it's really stunning. The suits are incredible, especially Cake King, which is genuinely one of my favourite rider suits ever. I also feel like that one should have been introduced a bit later on, but you gotta sell those toys, right? Also, the action sequences were really beautifully done. The themes, I really liked the idea of Shoma escaping this horrific toxic family who've done awful things to him, but he still keeps his kindness, building a newfound family with Sachika, Hanto, Rakia, Dente. Also, can I just say, casting Jiro Okamoto as Dente's suit actor was a lovely touch. Dente was peak, no notes.
I think Gavv is really strong, and its main appeal is the fact that it's a very character-based show where the conflicts are personal, and it's about personal trauma and about how family ties perpetuate this, and then the cycle of like generational and familial abuse, and how letting those negative things take over your life can essentially like ruin your chance at happiness, or it can make you live a very miserable life. And I feel like that is the core of what Gavv is, a show about finding yourself and moving on from your past traumas.
I love Gavv madly, but the ending I was not entirely in love with. It was okay overall.
Kamen Rider Gavv is definitely a masterpiece in my opinion, yeah? But it definitely needed 75 to 100 episodes to really reach its full potential. Absolutely love Gavv's ending, but it ended way too soon. And while it didn't end on a bad note, I guess it just didn't, finish its story.
Because of that, I really wanted Gavv to become a favourite, but for me, the ending just didn't quite land, and I know a lot of you think that as well.
But now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about why Gavv, again, didn't stick the landing as much as we'd hoped. Hey, it's their opinions, not mine. You can't be annoyed at me.
So, here are my really quick, fast bullet points. Okay.
Although I am a huge fan and there's very little criticism I have about Gavv, I definitely believe that there are flaws with it, especially in the latter half of the show, where the pacing gets a little bit rushed and there's a lot of room for improvement.
However, I do think that the ending could have had a bit more punch to it. It's not the worst thing ever, but I do agree there's something different they could have done.
I kept going back and forth with myself saying that Gavv's ending was alright, because it's done a lot of things that past Kamen Rider shows have done. It didn't really do anything wrong per se, and the more I thought about it, the more I think that's kind of the issue.
The issue I have with Gavv is the ending. And I do feel like it's not just the ending, but it's the building up to the ending.
I love the pacing at the start. In the middle of the series, it slows down a bit with the new villains, the whole bitter Gavv thing. The ending, I feel, was a bit rushed, though. Because we had so many villains left at the end, it felt like we had to get through all of them as fast as possible, and that led to a definite sense of the series feeling a bit more rushed near the end.
I had no real issues with the ending, to be honest. I guess I heard here and there, some people, probably didn't think it was the best ending, but I think it fit very well with how the story played out.
It's not a perfect show. I think that for all the highs and bangers of the first arcs of Gavv, man, I think it suffers from a bit of that revice where it kind of falters somewhere, and I want to say it was just the rushed ending. I think there was still a lot more untapped potential with Gavv, especially with its half-baked villains. Kezza, can you please edit a picture of Kamen Rider Bake somewhere here? Thanks.
So here are the few things I wish Gavv had explored a lot more before Gavv ended.
Okay, first and foremost, I truly thought that the Antho Shoma ship was going to set sail. I thought that they were actually going to go through with it because it's so obvious and it's clear what the writer's intentions are, and they're absolute cowards for not going through with it.
I want a very sweet, tender gay moment for Shoma and Antho at the very end, where Sachika accidentally bumps into Antho and they bump and they kiss, or they can even bump noses and that would be okay, and they all go off in the sunset together and it's beautiful, and yes, that's how I would end Gavv. Yippee!
The Antho Shoma's ship should have set sail. I'm really disappointed about that.
The big issue for me that a lot of people bring up was the treatment of the female characters. Characters like Sachika and Shita had so much more potential than the show ever really explored. I'm not necessarily saying that Sachika had to be a rider, though that would have been really, really cool.
And I'm going to echo the one thing you've made a video about, and what I'm sure other people have said too. The one missed potential of Team Gavv is that Sachika should have been a Kamen Rider.
They should have been a Kamen Rider. She should have been a Kamen Rider. Why didn't she get a helmet? I don't understand.
I think Sachika should have got a rider for him.
Dente leaves behind a driver for Sachika with a really sweet message, and he basically goes, "Go out and slay, girl!" And then she does, and she gets to help the boys with their infiltration of Stomach.
Yeah, Spain, sway.
Yes, you can have a strong female character who who isn't a superhero and is just there to be the moral compass, the anchor for our protagonist, but oh god damn it, like it would not have hurt if it would not have hurt if Sachiko was a Kamen Rider. Just make her a superhero. It would not have hurt.
But I really liked her early arc where you saw everything she was doing with Happy Pare. They really could have gone more into that rather than relegating her to snack bringer and social media checker of the week. And in that scene where Sachika confronts Lango towards the end, I hate that they made that into a gag. I know they didn't want her to get hurt, but come on, just give her a little bit more.
Kind of a huge bummer, I think, that she didn't get a form. It's fine having a very strong supportive cast or, mentor character, something that brings the whole group together. And that's what she did, but I don't think her having a form would have suffered. Suga had, throwaway forms, Bake and all that. We could have had another rider, and I don't think it would have hurt anything.
Glotta. Glotta is introduced as a fearsome foe at the start, but then she amounted to absolutely nothing. For 90% of the series, she was MIA. She was only here to say some throwaway lines, and she did absolutely nothing. Right until the end game, where literally she became the final boss for, Lakia, and to kill off Dente Oji-san, and to, during this short period of time where she also got the final boss, she was literally given such a deep and sad story that it just makes me feel like I wish they have explored this a lot more. Her entire backstory felt so throwaway, but at the same time it was so well done. So it felt like, could we have a lot more of Glotta if there was an additional 10 episodes, 20 episodes sort of thing,
I would have it that Glotta actually survives for the final battle and Lakia takes her out then, which then allows her to have a sweet, dying, tender moment with Jeeb to maybe make Jeeb rethink his actions and be a little less of a prick. Times are hard, but you gotta keep going on, and a stomach is toxic as hell, so get the heck out of there, boy.
Glotta definitely deserves a lot more screen time as a character. They built her up with so much. Right at the start, then they let her, fade into nothingness, and then come back, build her up, and then it was just too short. We didn't have enough time for Glotta.
As a tentacle man himself, I think Glotta needed more of a spotlight. She was such a top dog, just slamming Valen around in the beginning, and then I don't know. I feel like she could have had more of a role in the end, but I get it. And the whole Longo being dead for the last half of it, I don't know. He was okay. I think if I had to change anything, I would have had the president kill Longo. Have them team up to kill the president. Kind of like they did, but, it still made them look weak. They weren't strong enough to even kill the president. They needed Longo's help. And then have Elizel and Jeb do something weird. I don't know. Maybe make a Gavv baby. I don't know how that works. Whatever. But I think they could have been more interesting story for a big bad than what actually panned out.
Where it really fell apart for me was the final half of the story.
The entire Stomach family basically being wiped out. I feel like a lot of them didn't really go through a lot of changes. I don't know. Would you say character development? I don't know what the word is. They're kind of stuck in their ways because of that. They die. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If they're not unable to adapt, then they can't survive. So that's on them, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh.
Liesel. Alright. If y'all don't realize, Liesel is probably one of my favorite characters from Gavv. It's no secret, okay? So Liesel was actually introduced as a very fun and dangerous foe. I love how they established Liesel as a character. Yes, ever since the president comes in, Liesel literally got, established as such a great character, as such a great, the perfect villain that her only idea is, I want to have fun, I don't care about the world. I think that is one of the best kind of villains here.
They introduced Liesel as this sort of master manipulator, but also sort of safe haven for one of the characters who had gone through some trauma, and I thought they were taking it in an interesting direction at first. But then Liesel's character for me really failed. It didn't do enough to then, on the back of Lazelle's character, introduce the new big bad, which was the president, which I thought was very weak. And all of the president's lackeys were also very weak. I didn't like that.
I felt like Lizelle kind of sat around for a lot of the finale until her final fight alongside Jeeb, that the pair were allowed to have against Hanto, which is a bit of a shame because I thought Lizelle herself could have been an incredible final villain for all of our riders. Maybe taking on Longo herself and taking revenge for her father, or maybe even Jeeb if they decided to kill him off before the finale. She could have gotten, say, a berserk or an even more monstrous form and taken on both Hanto and Shoma, since obviously Lakia wasn't there. However, I do love the sacrifice that Jeeb made for Lizelle in the end as a callback to what happened to Sheeta. At least they can be together again.
Jeeb and Lizelle's relationship, I think it was a little... It's 50... not 50-50. It's kind of weird because I feel like they were just using each other. Like, Jeeb was basically just using Lizelle as a stand-in for Sheeta. And Lizelle was basically just using him, you know, to do whatever the fuck she wants. Or whatever the hell she wants. Sorry, I cussed.
And then her father died. So when her father died, I wish it was I wish it was like a turning arc where, for a character to suddenly go like, oh no, I lost everything. I need to work hard. I need to appreciate everything. We never really got that,
When Jeeb eventually dies and Lizelle is like, devastated or whatever, I feel like I think that's 100% deserved, to be honest, because she was just using people. She was using people for her benefit only, and now she lost everything. She lost her father, she lost Jeeb, and now she's all alone. And honestly, good for her.
Whole character development arc for Lizelle, because beyond that was like rushing the whole story to the end, right? And Lizelle's literally like, speed ran to the end and Jeeb died. So I felt that it was not very fair for her as a character in the end. And I think she'll definitely have, benefited from one more arc, which I'll talk about later. But definitely Lizelle wasted opportunity after, her father's death. So much more could have happened.
Basically, the minute that the president and Lizelle are introduced, if I were making changes, I honestly would have removed those two.
We got to get rid of the president!
And unfortunately, Lizelle as well. I like what they did with her enough, but again, it's just, at the end of Gavv, we just had too many characters and not enough space for everyone, so unfortunately, in our revised endings, we're just gonna pretend that didn't happen. Sorry.
They didn't add much, had some of the most frustrating moments in the show for me, like the complete ass pull that was Nielv's Uno reverse explosion death. And perhaps most unforgivably, it's the way that their presence took precious time away from the Stomach family.
I have Hanto have a confrontation with Nielv, and Nielv convinces him to let him go because he has the other half of Shioya, with a promise that maybe one day, if you find me again, I'll teach you how to
fix him.
Yeah, exactly. He's cutting a deal, basically, and Hanto decides to go for it, which he feels bad about this after, but this is how I'm bringing back that lost plot point that we all forgot about.
Because the introduction of Boka Zeldok, or like the Grand New President, we kind of end up rushing those character arcs because Boka is introduced really late into the game, and so we have to work on establishing like some world building for the Grand New World, establishing the political like background to this, and then establishing both Lizelle and Boka as characters. We've run out of time to like delve into each character arc.
The fact that the entire primary antagonist of the show, the entire faction of the Stomach family, not really doing much until they're threatened by Lizelle and her dad, yeah, it kinda sucks. These villains don't feel like the threat that they should be.
I felt like he was being built up to be this big final villain, but when he was killed off, 2 or maybe 3 episodes before the final, I was like, okay, so where are we going with this?
Especially with Glada and Nielv, their arcs, like, you can see exactly what they're trying to do. Okay, Glada is someone that has been affected by the lack of love in her upbringing. Therefore, she is very lonely and she is very closed off. And essentially, her not communicating with her siblings and her like trying to do things on her own is what eventually leads to her demise. Like this lack of empathy and stuff. And same thing with Neil. It's like that upbringing of his being weaker than others is what leads him to do these experiments and leads him to not connect with his family and therefore scheme on his own and then again eventually lead to his demise. However, it's because like the president political plot is so intertwined with this that they kind of get overshadowed because it has to be going on at the same time as like the presidential scheme, especially with Neil's arc. I feel like they established Boca as too strong of a character in terms of power scaling that he just feels like a Deus Ex Machina entity to like get rid of the stomach siblings one by one outside of like the original Happy Party cast or in addition to the Happy Party cast. And that is where I see a lot of issues come up. I just think that the introduction of Boca so late doesn't make sense, and it should have been one of the stomach siblings to take a greater highlight throughout that entire last arc. I feel like Boca was built up really high to be like the final villain, only to be defeated a few episodes before the actual end, and then have Longo come back, which I didn't really like that choice because again I feel like the characters are the root of the show and some kind of interesting plot could have been come up with so that like Neil, Glada, or like even G or Longo.
They really needed to give some of their screen time to the other stomachs, and particularly Lango. Lango as a final boss just didn't feel earned for me at all. It was really obvious that it was going to be him, but with the president basically getting all the evil schemes and leaving Lango to just watch from the rooftops and go, interesting every now and then, Lango just ends up feeling weirdly toothless when you get to his fight. His biggest named on-screen kills are other villains, if I'm remembering right. Nothing that really lands an emotional hit. If he was meant to be the endgame threat, he needed just a little bit more presence and a lot more emotional damage done on screen.
Honestly, I feel like he doesn't really change much. He's kind of just like, you know, the type he just wants power. He wants to be at the very top, and he does whatever he can to reach that. And in the end, he's defeated pretty easily. And I think him being defeated by Shoma very, easily in the last episode, I think that's very fitting because he thinks he's so big and bad when in reality he's not, And he was already defeated by Shoma beforehand, so it's not really out of the realm of possibility of Shoma defeating him easier the next time, so.
To be fair though, with Longo just hanging around for a bunch of episodes, I was partially expecting him to be the final villain, and also a little bit in the back of my mind expecting him to maybe be a good guy and, I don't know, make up something that he did earlier in the series. It was one of the two options. I just wanted to mention here, although they go back to the whole, Longo killed his father bit in the finale, I swear the first time they actually tell us is in the bloody clip show episode. One that I know people would skip if they could. Could they not pick a better episode to introduce the fact that Longo killed his father? Sure.
And then you had the great story, I think Jeb and Lizel, I think her name was. I think they could have been more of a main villain than Longo, I think his name was. I'm not good with names, I'm sorry. Stickasaurus don't know names. I don't know writers. Leave me alone. I thought their story was more compelling. President dying, Lizel and Jeb getting revenge for her father, for their sibling, but also they were kind of, in love. Obviously, spoilers, I guess. Is this spoilers? I don't know. Jeb sacrifices themselves to stop Lizel from getting killed by Valen. And, that's beautiful, depressing, sad. I hope we see her again in the future get revenge for Jeb, but I don't know. I feel like they would have been more of an enjoyable main villain, like a duo. Give them another power-up. Have Longo defeated by maybe the president or something. Make him more of a big bad. I don't know. It seemed where it kind of got loose near the end. I think everything else was pretty, and then it just kind of fell apart. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. I just thought they were more interesting than Longo ever was.
I thought Jeep could have been a really good final villain too, if it weren't for his like ass powers, like power scaling. Like he just wasn't that strong.
What was the deal with Jeep? Like they really. It felt like they were trying to redeem them, but like at the same time they didn't flat out redeem them. Like it felt like the show was supposed to, like, it was gearing up. Jeep was going to lose all these things, and all their meddling was going to like cause them to realize that, you know, they're playing on the wrong side. But no, they didn't really do that at all. And like all that they did was basically like fight for Lizelle and then get got, and then they got rewarded somehow at the end of it by their ghost going off with their sister. Like, I don't understand. I don't get it. I'm not sure what they were trying to convey there, but I was a little confused about it.
Jeeb's gone through a lot. Unfortunately, his death was his own decision, because he chose to fight Valen after given the chance to, like, let's just stop here. We don't need to fight anymore. Let's just stop fighting. And I think that moment could still happen as, like, oh, they're clearing up the rest, the riffraff or whatever. That, or you could probably still squeeze him into Guilty Parfait. I've yet to see that movie yet, but since it does seem to concern Lizelle, I feel like they could probably find a way to squeeze Jeeb in.
Like, I don't know why, but it seemed to me like Niall was going to be the one family member to survive everything, because they were so smart. Like, they were like 5 steps ahead of everything. And I don't understand why they just decided to like within a literal snap of a finger, they just like blow them to Kingdom Come. Like, what's the deal with that?
Make Nyelv the villain. Make Nyelv the main villain. Make Nyelv
Make Nyelv great again.
Make Nyelv great again. Basically, my train of thought is really just use Nyelv the same, like a similar way to how they use Dr. Maki in Kamen Rider O. It's like, you know, he is a mastermind puppeteer. I have everything planned in the back, and I'm evil for the sake of my own survival, but I am better than all of you. And I think that would just make... I like Nyelv a lot more as a villain than any of the other Gavv villains. So that's literally my main plot point. Is just like, for the ending, outside of what Cass already said, is just make Nyelv the main big bad.
Oh, we love Nyelv.
Then there's the Bitter Gavv arc, which for me was the most wasted opportunity in the series. The idea of this dark Gavv, this weird, distorted, almost childlike reflection of Shoma, that was fascinating. And then it ended as soon as it began, pretty much.
So Suga was, a very interesting character that was introduced very early in the show.
Nyelv and Suga, they really worked well together as like a villainous pair of scientists that were competing against each other in a way.
And then after he became Camera Big shortly, he was essentially dead. Alright, he didn't die, he became, part of the experiment of Nyelv Oni-chan. He coming back as a zombie? Does absolutely nothing? Why? Okay, he had that, the baby storyline, okay, probably his old family storyline. I think there's so much more to be explored with Suga that really got, thrown into wasted opportunity, personally, as I feel now.
If I could change one structural thing, I would extend that arc and maybe explore an actual Bitter Gavv character a little bit more. Maybe one of them starts going rogue and like the actual Shoma tries to break free, and it brings back the Stomach family being the central sort of theme. You wouldn't need to overcomplicate it really, just let one of the Bitter Gavs exist long enough to matter to everybody. If you let their presence really affect Shoma, Hanto, Rakia, Stomach family, and then especially characters like Sachika and Grotta, who desperately needed a bit more narrative weight, then if Lango wound up killing them off, is that not going to create a little bit more tension and set Lango up a bit more to be a final fight? That's what I thought they'd do with Lakia's arc, like weave him into everyone's lives and then have him taken away suddenly.
I think that being, focusing more on the Stomach family interpersonal relationships and how they could have destroyed each other, in addition to having one of them slowly develop to become a greater villain, I think Longo would be a great choice, because he definitely is one that cares about the Stomach family name the most out of the rest of the siblings, and how that belief destroys the company from the inside out, and he kind of pushing away the siblings in the same way, and having those cracks in their family relationship being the way that Shoma ends up defeating them. Like, I feel like that would have been really great.
There's a few ways they could have given a bit more importance to the Stomach family, but each of the siblings just felt a bit underbaked plot-wise, really.
The biggest problem, I think, with Gavv overall is Gavv should have one more entire arc. Alright, so we have seen a lot of the human world, but we have seen nothing of the granite world.
There was so much more they could have done with the Stomach family. I would have loved to see how much influence and power they had in the Granu's world. Like, did they create the socio-economic inequality of the Granite world? Like, they're clearly upper class. Like, how'd they get there?
I would have liked to see more of the Granite world, and it's like the people that live in it, like not just the part-timers, like the people who actually live there and like their opinions on, you know, Granite society or whatever. Like they weren't very fleshed out, I think.
So the Granite world is actually a very, 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 very complex world. Well, there's, you know, interesting architecture, different weathers, different political systems, you know, and you know, that's probably a different culture to the characters. Right, we do know a bit of their culture through Lakia eating rocks and all, but beyond that, we really didn't have anything from the Granite world.
And like the idea that they've just addicted this entire world of innocent Granutes with what's essentially fentanyl. Like, I feel like there was so much more we could have seen.
There could be one whole arc exploring the Granite world, and during this one whole arc, we could have, you know, given Lisa more screen time. We have given, you know, Glotta more screen time. Maybe through exploring the Granite world, they discover more about Suga. And we got what I mean, yeah? Like, literally one entire arc dedicated to the Granite world would have been really nice, but we never got that. The Granite world was just like, you know, oh, alternate dimension for a while, and then they get back to the real world. Alternate dimension for a while, and then they get back to the real world.
Like, sure, we got bits and pieces of it with Rakia and Kamel and their upbringing, but like, I completely forgot that the Stomach family had employees with a mind of their own until the ending of Gavv showed an ex-employee email Shoma. I was like, oh right, I guess they are their own sentient beings, not just mindless monsters.
Really, really became a wasted opportunity to really explore Granite world, to explore so much more, and to really, you know, an excuse for probably another 25 episodes.
Not that there's no stakes, but there's no urgency. Because the main crutch of the final arc even is the transformation of the human world into a farm for the Dark Treats. They mind control everyone, at least in Japan, and they have them going into the gates, going into the Stomach Corporation world. And then they undo all that, they destroy the gates and all that before the last episode. The fights in the last episode are just, we have to defeat Rango, Angie, Lizel, and destroy the factory. But the humans are already saved, like in the real world, so it just feels empty. And then we get, you know, our side characters are not really doing anything in that finale. Some of them are in the kitchen.
I don't think the final fight between his brother and Shoma was that great. I don't know.
I think the final fight with Longo wasn't exactly necessary. My original stance on it was that he could probably have not come back just entirely, and I think we would have been fine. But if we want to keep the whole him stabbing Boca moment and then the amazing Gumi thing, which is still really cool, then I think the best option would probably just to have Longo have died during the battle but against Boca, and then have, I don't know, his death with the quote-unquote heroic moment, despite him being like the big bad, be that little extra other thing, like boost of him going and getting amazing Gumi and all that stuff.
How I would fix it is we have to go back to when Rango takes over the human control program. Instead of just having him take over it, I think he needs to assimilate the gun into himself. I think he needs to be the one sending out the waves or whatever, or controlling the little Gochizo in doing that. He doesn't. Maybe he becomes a Kamen Rider. Maybe at the very least give him an upgrade suit, like maybe just steal Boka's arms or something like that. Then you can keep the how do we undo the mind control thing. Like everything else can kind of stay the same, but the finale itself is both. We need to defeat Rango to undo the mind control on everyone, and you can get Sachika and the uncle, maybe a couple other civilian characters we've met over the course of the show. They're going out and distributing like the antidote or something. Don't have Shoma just poof save everyone before the big fight. Have it happen during the big fight. That way, even the other fights, Hanto and Vakia's fight, feel more important because Shoma's having this big all-out brawl to undo all the mind control at the same time.
I feel like we had all these fine plot points kind of came together, then everything like went apart again, and it kind of fell apart for me. Maybe it's poetic that he was destroyed with a base form rider kick, but it didn't seem like the focal point of the episode.
I would like to have Hanto do more in the final fight against Longo. I don't know what that would be. Maybe he's supporting Shoma a la the sort of heroine role that he sometimes occupies with their relationship, or maybe he's just fighting alongside him, or the four of them just all kick Longo at the same time.
I love this like power of friendship, teamwork, you know, the same way kind of Geats does it at the end where everyone is fighting the final boss.
Exactly.
The final fights were very good. I enjoyed the heroes and the villains coming together to defeat a bigger foe in the President, only for one of those villains to betray the rest and become the actual final villain. I love that in the final fight, Shoma switches between all of his forms just to show how far he's come throughout the series, and also shows off his willingness to protect everyone, making sure that everyone's safe and he can get rid of all the hypnosis stuff that's happening. I also like the fact it was Shoma's first form that took Longo down for good. That's one bit of the finale I wouldn't change at all.
Alternatively, maybe they're working on the antidote as Shoma's fighting, and then they have to go and give it to Shoma, and now, instead of a Gochizo that he's made with his emotions, it's like a Gochizo's been made from the emotions of all his friends, and it gives him... doesn't need to give him a new form, it could just be another special attack, like what they did in the finale, but have it happen during the fight, have the other characters be more impactful with that. And I think you got a bit better of a finale, in my opinion.
I thought it would have been better if Gavv had gone through a more traditional structure, say like the 7 Evil X's in Scott Pilgrim, where sort of Shoma had to battle through his family trauma by literally battling his family, and you know, the climax would just still be Longo, because they've set him up for this, you know, such a long time, and then they do this really, really cool battle. I loved the battle with Shoma and Longo. But if they would have saved like an even better version of that battle for the end and had, you know, more interesting twists and turns, more interesting defecting and then refecting, like it would have been cool to see like maybe a family member switch sides and then switch back sides or something like that. Just something to build up the family as being the main bad. And even so, if you wanted to bring in a big bad that wasn't Lango at the end, surely you just reveal that the father is still alive and he's the final big bad or something like that.
I also thought it would be really neat to have a scene where it's at Longo realizing that things are, you know, not going good and this is the end of him. He's actually going to blow up Stomach headquarters as a sort of like, the legacy of Stomach dies with me. I will never let anyone take this from me.
Ooh, yeah.
And then he has a scene. It kind of reminds me of a scene from Double. And if you guys know what I'm talking about, I'm sure you can make the connections. But he's sitting at his dinner table and he sees like an apparition of his father, and he just smirks to himself, where he feels like in the end, I still feel that I've won because my father's legacy, I took it as my own, and now it's dying by my hand.
And
fully.
then he explodes.
And then he explodes.
I just thought the President was weak, Lazelle's story was weak, and building like the ending of Gavv around those characters that plot-wise and also like cool factor-wise didn't really make much sense. I wasn't quite happy with it.
It was a really interesting play to incorporate like political greed and corruption into this plot line, because again, like this drug cartel kind of adjacent plot line is also a huge thing, and they wanted to add more commentary, but I just don't think they had enough time for that. And I think focusing on the characters that have already been established and building their arcs more thoroughly would have been a great way to end the series.
It does what you would expect it to do. President Boca is defeated, and then Longo is defeated. Day is saved, right? We all win. Woohoo, yay, no more drugs on the streets. Alright, yeah. But I think other seasons did that better. And the main reason why Gavv's was an issue was because it was really abrupt. It feels like almost as soon as Rongo was defeated, the credits started rolling with very, very little epilogue in there. With as much detail that Gavv gave us, with as much characterization it gave us throughout the whole show, and not just me, I think a lot of people would agree that the characterization was really, really good here, it felt really empty that there wasn't really much to tell once Rongo was defeated. My mind kept going towards Kamen Rider Agito. Its epilogue was a couple of episodes. It told a story later in the future to end off the whole story of Agito. Was it necessary? No. Was it good? Also no. At least in my opinion. But it was something. It was an epilogue that went off for a little too long, but it gave us something to care about, to latch onto with the characters. With Gavv, of course we still care about them, but that ending didn't really push them any further than we expected. The only thing really interesting I could say that Gavv gave us was that Rakia was left behind in the Grand Youth world, but even that felt a little off.
Also, now that I've mentioned Lakia, he deserved a better wrap-up to his story. Honestly, I thought they were going to kill him off when he was facing off against the load of enemies to let Hanto escape. That might have actually hit a little bit harder, come to think.
I also would say the same about Rakia. Rakia's arc goes in tandem with Glotta's arc, and they kind of parallel each other in the difference between like having like that familial support finally, and then versus not having that, and how that leads to Rakia winning over Glotta. But again, it feels rushed because there just wasn't enough time to deal with it. Like the Kamen arc was actually the Kamen arc both rushed and not rushed at the same time. I feel like there were a few filler episodes in that, but I feel like in those fillers they also could have focused more on Rakia's relationship with Sachika, because I feel like that was really important to the story.
I don't have a problem with him being stranded in the Grand Root world again. I mean, not stranded, but like, return to the Grand Root world. But I have like a little bit of a problem with the way he gets stranded. Like he's destroying all the doorways or whatever that connects to the human world, and like he's like blowing stuff up, and then all of a sudden the platform he's standing on or whatever, it collapses, and he's like, oh, I messed up. I feel like that's a little out of character, to be honest. I feel like Lakia would be more, I don't know, I feel like he wouldn't make a mistake like that. But that's just my thoughts. But him getting stranded in the Grand Root world, I think, works perfectly fine. He at least has, his little Gochizo thing with him.
I think throwing Ram back into the Gavv world, Shoma doing his own thing, and then Valen doing his own thing too kind of didn't pan out. I wanted everyone to come together, but maybe that's the Sentai lover in me, where teamwork makes the dream work.
So in summary, definitely we could use an additional 20 to 30 episodes in Gavv, or like what they did in the past Rider series. They did something special. We could have gotten Kamen Rider Gavv RX. I mean, they did it with Black. Why couldn't they have done it with Gavv? And also, you don't want too much Shoma? Maybe you don't want to use Shoma for 2 years straight? No problem. We could have a sequel Rider series like Kamen Rider Agito, which was a sequel to Kuga. I mean, it's a loose sequel, but they're still existing in the same universe. I thought that they could have totally have done a Agito for our Gavv. If you got what I mean here. Yeah, so it's actually a lot. I think most of it is Gavv didn't have enough time to cook. I mean, don't get me wrong, I really, really love the ending of Gavv, alright? Just that I felt it ended way too soon.
Again, main things about the last arc and the ending that could have been improved is just cutting down the amount of characters, focusing on a few key points, and then using that to kind of hone in to the deep message, like the overall themes and deep messages of the story, and like about this overcoming of trauma. And honestly, they could have fit a redemption arc somewhere if they really tried.
It was a bit too safe. It did things too easily. And of course, there is nothing wrong with that. That's why I said, it's okay. It didn't really do anything new, and that's alright. But it'll just get that same reaction. It was an alright ending, because it was alright.
Yeah, but that's basically my thoughts on the ending. I still really liked it.
Despite all my nitpicks about the finale, I still think that Gavv is a very good series, and considering it was one of the first ever Kamen Rider series I'd completed fully, I'd really encourage others to watch it.
Thank you guys all for listening. I can't wait to hear what everybody else's thoughts on the ending are and what they would change.
Yeah, me too.
And thank you, Kezza, so much for having us.
I hope everyone wants more Nielf.
Yes.
Obviously, everyone's opinions are their own. I don't know how the rest of this video is going to go, but I would still highly, highly recommend this season to anyone getting into Rider, especially after getting exposed to it through Zets or however TikTok or something. This was still an amazing season. I love this cast so much.
And I like the story a whole lot.
Listen, them action sequences, dope. The suits, dope. The characters, dope. The story, dope. Now, obviously, I ain't gonna say too much. The ending was a little... It can't be perfect through and through, you know what I'm saying? It had to dip at some point.
But there's just something to be desired from how things seem to be conveyed to how things actually ended up.
I really liked Gavv, but it just got let down by that ending quite a bit, in my opinion. It really felt like a series that was just so close to being something good, but in the end, it just wound up being a bit bittersweet.
That's what I would change with Gavv. I super enjoyed it. I have way too many good Yugijo's, and we're making all the Gavv emblems. That's how much I loved it. So, I'm not disappointed in it. Just, if someone had asked me what I would do differently, that's it. But, and that's Stickasaurus' opinion, so what does that matter?
I still do dig it. It's pretty sweet.
Now we've come to the end of the video. Though the end of Kamen Rider Gavv may not have been what we were expecting or hoping for, it was still a pretty good show. Like, I won't lie, I won't say too much because I don't want to annoy people with my opinions. Wait, you want to know my opinions? Are you sure about that? You know I'm very opinionated! Okay, if you guys want to hear my thoughts on Kamen Rider Gavv, please let me know in the comments down below, and give us a subscribe, just to make sure I know the message is to make a new video. Anyway, thank you again so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye! Bye! And with that, that's all I've got to say about Gavv.
Now, obviously, thank you so much to Kezza Henshin. Big shout outs to each and every other creator within this video, and subscribe to my channel.
What was that? What is that, Kezza? I don't know.
Bye-bye, Kezza!
I hope I helped. Thank you, Kezza. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kezza, for having me in this video. Love your community. And I'll see you in the next stream, probably.
Thank you again to all the creators who were part of this video. These kind of collabs would never exist if I didn't have so many connections to great and talented people. So thank you again for being part of this collab. Everyone go subscribe to them. Their links will be in the comments down below. And yes, please just put your opinions in the chat. This is what we're here for. We're here for this discussion. Though it is a bit late, it's still something that is on my mind. So please, let us know what you guys thought of Kamen Rider Gavv. Anyway, see you guys next time. Matane!
Niel for president.